later, but you'll be glad to know that it's worth the wait because we have a great session that we're calling Manuscript Tune-Up. After the success of last week's set of manuscripts that you sent to us, we got flooded with several, and we are going to get back to all of you, but we've picked to cover two that I think are going to be really helpful to look at here today in a brief period. And we got Courtney joining me. And because we're running a little bit late, I know, Courtney, you've got to jump to your kids and take them somewhere right at 5 o'clock. So we're going to be super efficient. We're going to skip the quick tip for today. I'm going to go straight into sharing my screen. So this submission comes from a longtime member of our Facebook group, Fred. By the way, if you haven't joined our Facebook group, go ahead and do that right now because it's the best way for us to communicate, stay in close contact, and for you to get immediate help and support from us. Okay, so Courtney, let's take a look at this. And whenever you're looking at a paper, we're going to look at this with the kind of our hat of being peer reviewers on. Courtney, what things do you look for, and how do you go approach doing a peer review yourself?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing might seem kind of obvious, but it's just looking at the title and seeing if it makes sense, and if I can get a sense of what the study is about from the title.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. And then, yep.
And then what do you do?
And then it's moving on to the abstract, of course, and then seeing if we can find that gap that we always talk about, and yep, if the abstract is making sense.
Yep. So we're going to look for the gap. We're going to see the abstract, and I think one of the few times I really read a paper closely is when I'm doing peer review. And if you guys haven't gone through our reading training, we have a triple pass method. You're going to get great value out of it. It's going to save you a ton of time. And what I really try to do at that stage is really try to reconstruct, what did the paper do? What did the authors do? What did they find? So I fully understand the paper before going on to constructively critique it. So yeah, Courtney, just from the title, I'm seeing a few things that raise red flags. You're probably seeing them already. What are they for you?
Healthcare seeking behavior for major.
So while you're looking at that, for me, you want to cast your audience to be inclusive and not alienate people. So what are the 4 major non-communicable diseases? I know what they are. They're referring in this case to a set of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and common cancers. I don't want to go into that though. But the problem is you're already restricting yourself to a narrower audience. That may be okay, but your editors may not really catch this or understand why that's important. Okay, and then another thing that immediately jumps out of me in the title is, we got some background noise coming from you. I don't know if you want to mute or switch to your headphones, but usually there are good practices in the way that in systematic reviews, we tend to follow Prisma practices. And if you don't know what those are, check out our past videos. There's another guideline that's worth following called STROBE. And these give guidance on how to report observational studies. This appears to be an observational study. And one of the guidance is you need an identifier with the study. Is it a national study? What is that? Is this an epidemiologic survey that you went out and did? Was this a multivariate regression analysis? Is it a simulation model? So we need something here that's a bit more. And I also think healthcare seeking behavior is a little bit vague. So yeah, Courtney, do you have any thoughts on this? For me, I would grade this about, this is not very exciting. I can see that from the title, BMJ Global Health, the authors want to target high, and I'm not seeing the high impact coming out of this from the title. Courtney, any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think we often talk about how to make your topics more, relevant to very high level hot debates that are going on in the world or in the literature. And this, I'm not getting that feeling from this. And like you said, there's just so many bits that are missing. Like I can't really tell what kind of study it is. And yeah.
It just kind of feels to me a little bit vanilla in a way. And friend, I know you're watching, so no hope, no offense taken, but it just doesn't feel like a top tier journal paper right now. It doesn't mean it can't be. Let's go see what the gap is, because maybe this is just some polishing is needed. So okay. So here we go, background. And this is usually where you want the gap to be. So, and this is weak. This is a weak identification of the gap. Evidence on factors associated with seeking treatment is of great public health interest. That doesn't exactly make me feel incredibly excited about what the value of this paper is going to be or what big debate it's tapping into. What do you think about this on the gap, Courtney? How would you score this on the gap side?
Yeah, this isn't scoring very good on the gap side. We haven't, again, we're missing an idea of what the 4 major NCDs are. It just says that there is some sort of mortality and morbidity burden, but we're not giving an idea of the scale of it. And we know that there are really impactful numbers that could be used here when we're talking about the burden of NCD. So there are ways to make this a bit more flashy.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just saying, given the mortality burden, I mean, if anything, you might say NCDs are the leading killers in India, right? To reduce their burden, takes, I don't know, active patient self-management or seeking preventative behavior to avert costs or something to this effect. But the question is missing: is it that that there's inadequate uptake of treatments that work in India, and you want to understand what the barriers are? There's just something missing, and there's no hypothesis really. Like, let's just go explore stuff, examine factors associated with seeking treatment, and this kind of raises an allergy for some social scientists and epidemiologists to say, well, this feels like a fishing expedition. You didn't have a hypothesis, so you just kind of looked at a whole bunch of stuff and fiddled with the data and saw what came out. So that's a little bit tricky. Now, some of this though, there's more going on here. So there was actually a model of health service use. That's kind of interesting, but it's not clear how that played out. Do you have any other thoughts on this, Courtney, as you go through it?
Yeah, just going back to the gap for a minute. I mean, there's no reflection on what previous literature has done. So there's not a sense that it's just this idea that it's of great interest, but has it been studied before and studied wrongly, or it hasn't been studied at all and now studied it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's missing. So look, from what I can tell, we haven't gone through the methods, and I think we're going to bracket that because it doesn't make so much sense to do that. I think there's some major surgery needed to the framing to help get this paper to the next level. That said, if it's something you just want to kind of wash your hands, get it out, get it to a second or third tier journal, this might be okay. Let me just go to the main conclusions. So yeah, this is unclear. So it's basically reporting social inequalities, but I don't know if that's telling us something we don't already know. So I mean, kind of, if you have a weak gap, it's often the case that the conclusion is going to lack a little bit of thunder and oomph behind it. What's your, Courtney?
Yeah, I agree. If in making this like a little bit more flashy, or say that, in other studies that tried to understand the reasons for health-seeking behavior find that less vulnerable groups have greater health-seeking behavior, but this hasn't been done in India, then the result that this is also true in India is a little bit more interesting. But yeah, I think it's all coming back to the framing and the gap not being so greatly highlighted.
Yeah, and I really sometimes I find it challenging, Courtney, because to actually get back and there's so much you can do with the framing, but at some stage to get this to be a high value paper, you might end up having to touch the analysis. And Fred, so I think just Fred speaking to you here, I think you've got to make a strategic decision of which direction you want to go. Given that you're an early career researcher, my suggestion to you personally, just use whatever's helpful here, doesn't mean it's right, but would be to just get this out to a third tier journal. Don't do too much of it, and really start in your next paper to focus on getting a winning topic and a high impact gap that you're trying to address, and clarifying the contribution. You might be able to do something to say, make more out of this model of health service use, possibly. But Courtney, any last thoughts for Fred before we go?
Yeah, I think you're right. You can frame this, but then the framing is only going to get you so far if the analysis doesn't actually speak to a high impact topic.
Yeah, exactly. The most beautiful analysis on a low impact topic is still gonna. It's like if you take 7 and multiply by 1, it's still just 7. It's not gonna have that multiple impact. You're kind of you're gonna be a little bit limited by the topic that you've chosen. Okay. Thanks, Courtney. So I'm gonna pull out one more, and this one, I mean, we're really troubleshooting some papers that have had some tough rides in the literature or some false starts, and so really grateful when people in the group will share this with us, because I know it can be a lot to put yourself out there in this way. And so, yeah, just really proud of you guys for being willing to do that to help the community. Okay, so this time we've got another one. This one has gone through peer review. I'm not going to touch. This is one that was sent to us by Raj in the group, and I'm not going to touch the comments actually here that came from the reviewers. I just want to look at the manuscript because we're a bit tight on time. So let me share my screen once again. Okay, sure. All right, here we go. Okay, and I don't know how to get it. Let me get rid of this. Okay, so here we go. Let's see. Okay, Courtney. Yeah, so just following the same approach that we did. Immediate thoughts and reactions.
Delivering the prompt. Yeah, I mean, again, it's not flashy for a high impact journal. If I was reviewing this title for a high impact journal, it falls a bit flat.
But yeah, I think delivering the promise. I mean, I would an informative evaluation. I would just say, evaluating the impact of group-based smoking cessation therapy, mental health patients, and then kind of identify the Let's Kick Butt Challenge in Auckland. But what's kind of missing again here is so the outcome is trying to quit smoking in mental health patients. I don't see any problem with doing a program evaluation. I think it's a very good idea. So I think this creates a valuable contribution to the evidence. To me, I'm immediately thinking this is going to be a specialist tobacco journal that you'd want to send this to. What are you thinking in that line too, Courtney?
Yeah, I think that would be a good strategy here. Yeah,
because that's your audience. Possibly mental health patients. You could go in a mental health journal, because these are the two there, or maybe an Australian medical journal that's more general, although that won't be as high impact overall. Okay, let's go to the abstract and see what kind of gap we can address. Okay, so it's an unstructured abstract, which is usually, again, for the medical or public health literature for an evaluation where this is going to target. I think you would want a structured abstract. Let's see where we're at. Okay. So this has done a nicer job, Courtney, of framing the gap. Let me make this a little bit bigger. I would like some numbers here, something that I'd like to see more, that people with mental health problems experience greater difficulties trying to quit smoking, and conventional programs may not help them or are less effective. And then here you've got an innovative intervention that tried to overcome past challenges by doing this very innovative thing. Try to open this up to an international audience. This just feels a little bit like this is only going to be interesting to people in New Zealand. And maybe this also covered some Aboriginal or Indigenous groups. That could also be quite interesting to emphasize. Courtney, any initial thoughts here on the gap?
Yeah, it's not, I think the way you framed it gets to the point quite quickly and on target. And this feels a little winding to me. Innovative solutions are needed. It's just, I don't know, it's not hitting the target.
Yeah, it just doesn't, I have trouble getting excited about that. Okay, we need to do something different. So I just, as scientists, we want to be concrete, specific, and definite. And often it's not just them. I see many professors and many types of scientists slipping into saying things of this nature that just isn't really needed. And this kind of sentence here, as background and context, doesn't really help. I'd suggest getting straight to the point in this abstract, and I would convert it to a structured abstract and consider it a tobacco journal. And okay, here's the other problem. Yeah, okay, this is a methodological problem. So to do an evaluation, they did here a qualitative analysis. And this, I think, is going to make this difficult because it's not really an evaluation in the way that the kind of the established public health literature will want to see. Like, what was the impact of the program? And what do you think here, Courtney? I feel like this evaluation does not, in a way, doesn't deliver the goods that I want to see in an evaluation.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like there is a statement. The following sentence says that 83% completed with a cessation rate of 36%, which is what public health literature is going to want to know. But I think he needs to pull out.
Yeah. Oh, this is good. This is good. Well spotted, Courtney. That does help. So the evaluation is there. So a bit more needs to be made out of this. It's missing some critical details. Is this a cessation rate of those who completed the challenge? And how does the cessation rate compare to the background cessation rate in this population? It sounds like there wasn't any kind of they weren't able to set up any kind of control group, which is okay. It's just a limitation, obviously. So yeah, any more thoughts on this here? And you want to test this in some way for some kind of, you want to see, usually in these abstracts, in this type of literature, you want to see some test that this was significant. We don't know how many people participated in this, 83% of registered clients, but how many were there?
Yeah, the other issue, I think,
oh, okay,
so
85, okay.
I mean, the cessation rate was 36%, and then it goes on to say that the participants had this high level of engagement and acceptance. But what about why was the cessation rate only 36%? There must have been a reason why that rate wasn't higher, and we don't see any problems being targeted or pointed at in the program. It's just a sort of very rosy picture, but is 36% a good? Yeah, we don't know. And
you have to set out the meaning. You're right, Courtney. Sorry, I cut you off there.
No, I just to engage a bit more critically, like I would question this very rosy picture that there was a high level of engagement and acceptance, but then you're like, well, how does that match up with the 36%? And is there room for improvement? And
yeah, and it has this hint towards fewer but more effective components. That kind of leaves you scratching your head. Well, what were those fewer but more effective components? So that's also really not coming out. So the abstract reads a little bit confusingly for those reasons. So I would try to streamline this. I would take our advice that we've done with others doing unstructured abstracts, break it apart, make it a structured abstract, and then piece it back together if necessary. In your case, I don't think it will be. I think it will help you get much more clarity and focused, and try to streamline to have one big message to come out. And I think that's what you want to say. Maybe you want to say that this is a high rate of success compared with conventional smoking cessation in this population, which is maybe under 10% or something, and has great promise for future expansion. Something to that effect. Is you just need that one high level message. I don't know if this necessarily is abstract worthy material. Depends on your space, but I would instead maybe pick out a finding that helps back up the story that you're telling.
Yeah, one other idea, David, because just reflecting on what you mentioned about, this might be a less valued approach in public health literature. You might spend a sentence to make the case for why this sort of approach is needed and has some sort of additional benefit. I found when I've used other methodologies that aren't typically used in public health that the reviewers come back and they want to attack the method. And so you can preempt that a little bit by saying why specifically this method is needed in this case.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. We really haven't contextualized how innovative this program is. how this kind of fits in an international conversation about smoking cessation. Is this just your run-of-the-mill smoking cessation program applied to this population? And what's new about it is it's this pool of mental health and addiction service users. So it's really that's a little bit unclear. I wouldn't mind seeing some sub-analysis as well if there were certain kinds of people who were service users for different issues that maybe did better or maybe less well. Maybe there's a core group that you were very high among people with depression, but maybe not those with substance use problems, and those need an even different approach. But you'd have to look at it. It's relatively small numbers. I think the control group is also going to create a little bit of a challenge here for publishing. The lack of a control group or comparison group. Okay, Courtney, I know that you have to shoot. I'm just gonna look and see if anybody's put some comments through. Somebody has okay. Oh, Fred came through and said thank you for all the advice. We'll implement the changes. Somebody sent some hearts. I guess that means that they liked it. Abstract can be improved, as Dave and Courtney suggest. Take the excellent advice. Okay, great. And somebody else here, Professor, you give more emphasis on gaps. Methodology is another challenge facing most of the researchers. 100%. And we do more on methodology. To do more on methodology can sometimes outstrip what we can do in a single session. So that's why we have a lot in our systematic review challenges and in our quantitative and qualitative training courses that our students get tremendous value out of. We are, and I know we've been promising this for a while, to do a systematic review speed run effectively coming up. We are going to launch that soon when Courtney has stable internet and I'm in the same place for some time and not traveling around a bunch. So guys, thank you again for your manuscripts. I hope you find this helpful. We love hearing from you and getting your papers and projects. And big thanks again to Raj and Fred for sharing their work with us and contributing to the community. Hope you guys all have a great weekend, and we will look forward to seeing you next week at the same time. All right, bye. Catch you soon, Courtney.
Bye.